Hello students, how are you all? Today's lecture is for recapitulation of the work done till now. We began with the chapter The Last Lesson by Alphonse Daudet. This chapter, it is set in the days of the Franco-Prussian War in the year 1870-71. We have two main characters in this story, M. Hamel, who is a French teacher, and Franz, who is a student of his. The story begins when an order comes from Berlin that German would be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. That indirectly meant that French would not be taught in the schools of France. Here we begin with the story when the boy Franz sets out from his home for school, though he was unwilling to go to school that day, as he had not done the homework of participles given by the teacher. When he sets out from his home, he is attracted towards the forces, the Prussian forces who were drilling on the streets of Alsace. It is now when an idea comes to his mind that he should skip the school that day. But he overcomes that feeling and he goes in the direction of his school. Just then he is captured by the bulletin board crowd over there. He could not understand why people had gathered there and he moved on towards his school. He was taught by the blacksmith who commented that there is plenty of time for learning now. The child could not understand and he moved ahead. When he reaches the school, he finds it to be a school on a Sunday morning, as the things had already settled and Franz knew nothing. He enters the class and he gets everyone's attention. He's noticed by everyone and this makes him feel guilty. And when he had settled, he found the teacher in a different dress, a special dress, which he normally wore on inspection days. And now the teacher stands up there and discloses that it was the last lesson of French, as German would be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. Now, this is from where we get the title of the chapter. And this thing surprises Franz. He's amazed. Now he comes to realize the importance of his own mother tongue. The teacher gets up to tell him that French is the most beautiful, the clearest and the most logical language of the world. So here he is telling actually what is the importance of learning your own mother tongue. And it is here the teacher blames the students and the parents sitting on the back benches that the habit of procrastinating the things made that non-learning. We will do it tomorrow, we will do it some other day. The human tendency, which is highlighted very well through this chapter, the last lesson. And ultimately we come to know that we must not forego the things for the routine activities, because the learning is actually not done in such situations, and maybe that tomorrow for which we are leaving the things, that opportunity never comes again. This is all about the chapter. Now if we move ahead, we did the second chapter called The Lost Spring. Lost Spring by Annis Young. In this lesson, what we did was, it is an extract from Annis Young book Lost Spring, Stories of Stolen Childhood. In this story, Annis Young, she analyzes the grinding poverty and traditions which condemn poor children, the slum children, the backward children to a life of exploitation. And it is in this chapter the concept of child labor has been highlighted and the need of curbing this social evil has been highlighted. It is actually based on the theme of grinding poverty of the poor children of the slum, and there is mention of the bangle makers. The first part is based on the life of rag pickers, and these rag pickers are actually from Bangladesh who moved to Simapuri, and they settled there, and since then they have been in those slums which are very much ignored, neglected part of the national capital. That is why there is a line in the chapter, though on the periphery of New Delhi, it is far away from it, which actually means that this place, it is on the border of the national capital, it falls in the prime vicinity, still it is so much ignored, with the poorest of the human conditions provided to these inhabitants who have settled over there. The name of the boy, the rag picker around whom the story revolves, is Sahib-e Alam, which is in itself ironical as it means Lord of the Universe. So the author finds a stark contrast between the name of the child of this rag picker and the meaning which corresponds to his name. The kind of life they live, these rag pickers, because they find gold in garbage. They are always scrounging for gold. Actually, gold here means something valuable. Even a 10 rupee note is gold for such rag pickers. This is where the story revolves around. We have the other part, and it is about Mukesh. He's a bangle maker from Firozabad, and the slum which has been formed by these bangle makers, that is highlighted how these children, they work in dingy places, the kind of life they live, and how soon these residents of the bangle maker colonies, what happens to their eyesight. They hardly cross 40 and they are blind, and this blindness, it has become genetic for these people. They consider it very normal to lose their eyesight forever after crossing the 40s in their life, and they do claim that they don't even get 2 times meal a day. This has been the story from generations, and this is in continuation. So when in this chapter the author tries to inquire what actually happens of so much of labor is put in, so much of hard work, and the return is not there, then this boy Mukesh tells the author about the middlemen who just take the benefits with them and nothing passes on to the actual bangle makers. So it shows the plight. This chapter highlights how in very pathetic situations, pathetic physical conditions, these bangle makers, they work day and night. They keep on working. Even there is mention of a girl called Savita in the story, for which the author says that she doesn't even realize the sanctity of the bangles she is making, the auspicious bangles which she might be wearing some other day after marriage. She is not even knowing the importance, what is the significance of this. So the innocence of the children working there is also highlighted, and through this chapter the author is trying to highlight the pathetic conditions and poverty in which it forces young children to work at a very sooner age and robs them of their childhood. And this is we get the title from Lost Spring. Spring here corresponds to the childhood. Childhood means something, an age of blooming, coming out, growing. So that thing, that growth, that opportunity is robbed of these children. That is why the poet calls it Lost Spring. So this is the chapter Lost Spring we did. Now moving ahead on to the next chapter, it is Deep Water. Deep Water has been written by William Douglas, and it is considered to be his autobiography, and it is an extract from his book of Men and Mountains. In this chapter, in this extract, the author tells us about his fear of water and actually how he conquered it by his own determination and willpower. Now he says that the experience of drowning, which he had twice in his life, it had a deep meaning for him because he believes that only those who have known that stark terror and conquered it can appreciate. He concludes at the end of the chapter that in death there is peace. Now, this thing he was able to conclude when he had a drowning experience at the age of 11, in which he drowned thrice in a pool. He was just ducked into water by a robust boy. Unknowingly, the boy threw him there, thinking the boy would be knowing swimming. And this was not the fact. The boy experienced drowning in spite of the fact that he was mentally active at that time. He could not manage to come to the surface of water the last time, the third time. And when he was sinking, he left everything and he felt himself to be in the arms of his mother. And it was where that he had actually surrendered both mentally and physically. After that, he was rescued, and after this experience, the boy William had a deep fear for water. The word water was terrific for him. But he did not give up because he was being robbed of all the opportunities of life, of water activities, fishing, etc., etc. So he decided to overcome this fear of water. For this, he hired an instructor, and when this instructor was done, he still had fear in his heart. If not in mind, in his heart of hearts, he was fearful of water. So he himself chose to cross certain lakes, channels, but he kept on doing it until and unless he came to a conclusion that there is terror only in the fear of death. And he believed in the saying of the President Roosevelt, who once had said, all we have to fear is fear itself. There is nothing called fear if we try to just defeat it with our own determination. This is what the message is conveyed through the chapter Deep Water. If you make yourself fearful of something or anything, it will make you more fearful. It will make you die. And there is nothing called death, because the author says there is peace in death. Whatever we are trying to fear with, that is not scary if we overcome that feeling. So it is in our heart and mind. If that is in control, that is in check, we can overcome any difficulty in life. So this chapter gives you a very motivating lesson for life to go ahead and move on in life. So this is all about the chapter Deep Water. The next chapter which we have done is Going Places by A.R. Barton. The chapter Going Places, it is about fantasies and dreams. And it talks about the teenage period when adolescents, they dream, but the dreams are far away from reality. It is all about their aspirations and about doing the impossible. So the chapter Going Places explores the theme of adolescent fantasies and hero worship. It is but natural for the youngsters to idealize people and dream of following the footsteps of successful ideals. But their dreams drive them away from harsh realities of life, and later on, when this fact dawns upon them, they are far from reality. They start living those dreams and they think themselves to be a part of the same. And this is where all the anger and agony comes. All the trouble shoots up from this point. In the story, we have two main girls, adolescent girls who are friends, who are classmates, Sophie and Jancy. They're both in the last year of high school and both know that they are destined to work in a biscuit factory as they belong to a working class family. But Sophie dreams of big and beautiful dreams. She imagines her life to be glamorous, full of glory. She is not having any ambition which is rooted in reality. In fact, her all dreams and ambitions are far, far away from realities of life. Sophie is lost in her imaginations of owning a boutique shop and becoming famous like Mary Quant, a fashion designer. Her friend Jancy tells her not to dream as big as this, as it requires a lot of money, which they do not have. And to this, Sophie replies that she will become an actress, earn a lot, and then own a boutique. Jancy, being a very realistic person, does not support her friend's thoughts. And on reaching home, what Sophie goes to meet her elder brother Geoff, whom she is always believing in. And this brother of Sophie's is a very quiet and introvert person. He's basically a motor mechanic, and Sophie always believes that she is going to be a part of her brother's secret world, which he shares with no one. And that particular day, she shares with her brother that she met Danny Casey, and she tells that she would be going for a date with Danny. The brother knows that she is lying. She is very good at building up stories, but he doesn't say anything to her. On the contrary, Sophie has a younger brother called Derek, who is just having the contrast personality of Geoff. He even points out his sister for coming home late, and she is not supported by the younger brother. Geoff asks her where did she meet Danny, and she says she met him outside the Raz boutique, and it is where she cocks up that story. And it is Saturday, the whole family, being a fan of Danny Casey, they go to see the match where Danny Casey's football team wins the match. The father even celebrates by going to a pub. In the meantime, she goes to that secret place near the canal to meet Danny Casey, where he never turns up. She waits for hours together and she knows that it is just her imagination which will never be granted. She comes home, she feels guilty, but after some times again she starts living in an imaginary world, just making a fake belief that one day she will be living with Danny Casey. So the whole chapter is about the protagonist Sophie, who is a daydreamer who doesn't believe in realities and is also not ready to accept the fact of life. So this is where she gets the pain and the suffering, the unhappiness and the sadness around her. But in the end also, she is not giving up that fantasy world. So this is a chapter based on the adolescent problem of hero worship, which at times misleads the youth of the country or any nation. Now we will be doing the poetry My Mother at 66 by Kamla Das. This is a very touching poem which describes the relationship of a mother and a daughter. The daughter has a fear of losing her mother. The mother is old now. She's become very aged. Her body has started showing signals of her growing old age. And this troubles the author Kamla Das, who is also known as Madhvi Kutti. This is the pen name which she has written her works, and basically in her works she talks about very feminine issues. She's very bold and beautiful in her writings, and she very boldly takes up the issues related to women and children. In this poem, she is basically telling us when she was going to the airport and mother was sitting beside her, she happened to notice the face of the mother. She saw that it had gone old and it was dull. It was even pale, just like a winter's moon. This is the comparison. The simile is being used to highlight the diminishing face of her old aged mother. And when she notices all this, she is very much upset to realize that her mother might die soon. She, in fact, is captured by the fear that when she next time comes here, her mother is no more. And this thing troubles her very much. And to come out of all this, she looks out of the car window where she saw the young trees sprinting. Now, here in this poem, trees are symbolic. They are symbolic of one thought surpassing the other. She has been surrounded by a negative thought of the death of her mother. So she lets away this thought by a new thought that this is not going to be there. So one tree surpassing the other in a moving car, that is symbolizing actually the thoughts which are taking place one after the other. Just then this negative emotion is replaced by the other one when she notices merry children spilling out of their houses. So again, married children, they are symbolic of youth. They are symbolic of life, energy. And now she is trying to tell herself that this won't happen. She's coming out of that negativity. Then she goes for an airport check where when all the proceedings are done and she waves, she looks again towards her mother. She is grounded, she's engulfed with that negativity because she finds that mother has gone very dull and pale. She's ashen like that of a corpse. Her body has become so thin and lean. And again, that childhood fear. The poet says that she is surrounded by her childhood fear of losing her mother. And that childhood fear was that mother may die soon. And that fear captures the poet once again. Now, to come out of this feeling, this fear, she reassures herself and she says to her mother, "See you soon, Amma." She is actually trying to convince herself that the next time, whenever she comes to this place, her mother would be there and she would see her alive. And then the poet, she ends the poem with the words, "She smiles and smiles and smiles." Here repetition has been used in the poetry because she smiles, she's overchoked with emotions. She's very emotional at this moment when she's parting away from her mother. She feels she might not be seeing the mother again, and this thing is just taking her heart out, and she was not able to say anything. To reassure herself, give herself a promise that the mother will be there safe and sound the next time she comes here, she smiles and smiles and smiles. So dear children, this is all which we have done in the literature. Now talking about the writing section, we have already done assignments based on notice writing. Notices covering various categories for the school notices, notices based on the institutions, missing persons, then we have done for lost and found. So all the categories notices have already been covered and assignment has been given to you. Advertisements classified, which were 6 altogether in its different types, covering the heads: to let, for sale, job wanted, situation vacant, missing, matrimonial. All these have been covered, and we have even taken advertisements in the heading travel and tours. Inquiries we have already started. So all these are the short writing skills done in the assignments. We have also covered article writing, speech writing, and letter writing. Letter writing includes your formal letters. Formal letters, they ones which we have done in the assignments, they are letter to the editor, letter to the officials. So all these heads have been covered in the long writing skills. So these all are the topics which we have done in the recent past during this corona break, and I hope you are maintaining the record properly and just trying to groom yourself as much as possible apart from staying safe and healthy. Thank you all.